Bhutan and China are saying that they are going to, as soon as possible, conclude all the rounds of border talks. Do you know what does that mean? That means India's concerns about Doklam may not be addressed properly from the perspective of GS Mains Paper 2 and from the perspective of the UPSC preliminary examination, specifically the mapping section. You have to understand this topic in detail. Do not worry about notes, because I provide notes through my Telegram channel, that is by the name of Pooja Divedi UPSC. If you have any queries regarding this examination, feel free to talk to me on my Instagram and follow me on my threads. So recently, the 25th round of border talks have been concluded between Bhutan and China. By the name, as we see, it is a talk which pertains to resolving the border disputes that is festering between these two countries. I might add here that China has had a boundary issue with at least 14 countries. With 12 countries, it has resolved its issues. Two remain, Bhutan and India. So these two countries are actually concerned about certain areas in the tri-junction points where three countries, China, India and Bhutan, have issues regarding the sharing of areas. Also, we have to keep in mind that since 1984, 25 boundary agreements have taken place. India's stand has also changed throughout the years. We are going to understand it from that perspective as well. At the current conclusion of the 25th boundary talks, China and Bhutan inked a very important agreement, cooperation agreement, in which the functions have been given to the joint technical team in order to demarcate and delineate the border areas between Bhutan and China. But the more important and the more concerning or pressing issue is that Bhutan might cede Doklam in exchange of other areas with China, and that will be very concerning for India. See, in 1950, everything changed for Bhutan. When China acquired Tibet, it made China come in direct contact of Bhutan. So Bhutan, of course, because of sharing its borders with Tibet, it had an agreement regarding boundaries. But since China never said that Tibet is a country, it says that whatever agreements Tibet made to Bhutan stand void. So China started claiming 495 square kilometers in north central Bhutan specifically, then 269 square kilometers in western Bhutan, that is the Doklam area, which is strategically very important for India, and another, since 2020, very recently, another 740 square kilometers of the territory in the Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary. So Sakting shares a very close border with Arunachal Pradesh. These three areas specifically have been mentioned in different agreements, in different deals. So India is more concerned about Doklam and Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary because, of course, Arunachal Pradesh, according to China, is southern Tibet. So if it is getting emboldened by acquiring Doklam, it will also have an eye upon Sakting. There is a deal which is very concerning for India that might, make it sure that Doklam will belong to China. So what is India doing about it? I will tell you that as well. Bhutan and China have held 25 rounds of border talks since the year 1984. They talked about mainly three disputed areas: the Jakarlang and Pasamlang in North Bhutan and the Doklam area in West Bhutan. Apart from the 25 rounds of recently 25th occurred, 25 rounds of talks, 13 expert group meetings have also taken place. 3 were conducted this year alone. That means, that shows the seriousness China and Bhutan are showing towards resolving the boundary issue. But there is a problem. The problem is how we will demarcate this boundary. Both the countries, I wouldn't call both, but three countries, Bhutan, India and China, have different perspectives from each other. China has a different perspective, but when we talk about India and Bhutan, we are lying on the same page. We are on the same page regarding the boundary with China. So China says that Mount Gipmochi will determine where the boundary runs. Here is Mount Gipmochi, which is pretty very close to the border of India. But Bhutan and India are saying that we will follow the Batangla region. From Batangla, it will run towards the Merugla and Sinchula. That means it is further to the north of the Mount Gipmochi area. That means whatever disputes may arise in the future will be shifted further north and not very close to the boundaries with India. So Bhutan and India are on the same page, but China is not. How serious this situation is can be traced back to 2017's Doklam standoff, when there were reports that China is building unilaterally roads and other constructions in the area which is very close to the border of Bhutan, and that was being done in the area of Bhutan only. So Bhutan called upon India to take a stand because we were supposed to do it under a treaty of friendship. So Beijing started constructing a road towards the strategically significant Jampheri ridgeline. India considers Doklam Plateau to be an undisputed territory of Bhutan, while China says that no, Dokala or Doklam is actually just an extension of the Chumbi Valley, which is not our perspective. Not only that, but the Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary, which is very close to Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh, it is also being claimed by China since 2020. This is being held like a hostage. Hostage as in, if I have to get something, I should also make sure that I have any other thing with me for exchange. And this has been a strategy of China. Since the very beginning, it has been following a proper strategy. So it is saying to Bhutan that please give me Dokala or Doklam. In exchange, I will give you your north central regions, which I have earlier claimed, and the Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary. So this is a proper strategy that China is following. We are more concerned about Bhutan falling into the trap. The problem started when in the current year only, the Prime Minister of Bhutan said that whatever issues have been reported by Western media that China is building villages on our side of the boundary is not correct. This was alarming to India because of course we were also one of those who were saying it through satellite imagery. But Prime Minister of Bhutan said that there is no such thing. That was alarming because it showed that maybe Bhutan will cow down to China. In exchange of north central regions, it may give up Dokala. This is what India was concerned about. So our stand has recently changed. Recently as in between, if I talk about before 2017 also, before 2017 we believed that whatever issues, boundary issues are there between Bhutan and China are bilateral in nature, because we follow this very neutralist policy. Whenever there is an issue between two countries, it should be resolved by the two countries only. But Dokala standoff or Doklam standoff changed everything. Before that also, we understood the gravity of the situation. When External Affairs Minister, former External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj ji said that there is a 2012 agreement. In 2017, she said that there is a 2012 agreement that emphasizes whenever there is a problem with respect to a tri-junction area, all the three countries that are involved will be present whenever we are talking about boundary dispute resolution. Here tri-junction was Dokala or Doklam. That was an issue between not only Bhutan and China but also India. So whenever we are talking about the following principles, the principles that we need to follow in order to demarcate boundary, there are two aspects. One is the legal aspect. The legal aspect, are we abiding by the international laws, international agreements or not? The next one is political. Political as in geopolitical as well as domestic politics. How does China, how does Bhutan, how does India want to be seen in their domestic politics, thereafter international politics as well? So China follows the principle of geographical principles, as in it says that if we are looking at geographical demarcation, we must follow the rivers and mountains so that we can have geographical boundaries as the nature has suggested. That is why it says that the crest should be followed, Himalayan crest, the crest that divides the rivers between Bhutan and China. And for it, it is Mount Gimochin only, because this crest actually divides the rivers that flow in China and Bhutan. This is what China is suggesting. But India says that the boundary should be demarcated around the principles of the highest watershed. That means the highest line of ranges that lie in that geographical area. That means the Batangla range, Batangla area. That is why we have different aspects. So Bhutan-China border also actually is abiding by a 1890 convention, in which China has claimed the crest of the mountain range, which I have already told you, which separates the water flowing into Tibet and Bhutan as the boundary between Bhutan and China. And India on its part has claimed the highest line of the mountain separating the river as the boundary line. And this is the principle that we follow with Nepal as well about the Kalapani region. Okay, moving on. If I talk about the importance of Doklam, it's immense. Immense as in. We all know that the relationship between China and India are going at an all-time low. It is still declining and declining. The world is very volatile in nature. Recently, the External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, said that there is no danger now in the world that is too far. Anything can happen. The entire world is in tatters. There is no guiding principle. There is a complete failure of the United Nations, be it about the Ukraine-Russia war and the current war that is ongoing between Israel and the Hamas. So we cannot just rely on international principles right now. We have to ensure that we safeguard our own interest, which India, since it has started doing, China has not liked it. Who would like a particular person who was already abiding by my stance and now is standing up to the bully? Nobody likes that person. So India became that person and China did not like it. So Dokala, as you see here, at the tri-junction of China, India and Bhutan, is very close to the Siliguri corridor, which is also known as the chicken's neck. If there is any offensive, because China is already building a lot of infrastructure in this region, if there is any offensive that has to be launched from here in India, it will definitely talk about cutting off the chicken's neck. Chicken's neck is our way to connect the rest of the India to the seven sisters. And if that happens, if we do not, safeguard this region, this is an imminent danger. And no danger is right now too far. If it gets hold of Dokala, there is no guarantee at all that it will not eye the Arunachal Pradesh area, because of course it will get emboldened by this. If it gets Doklam to be in its own basket, it will get emboldened to also claim the Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary, which shares a border with Arunachal Pradesh, Tawang region, and India is housing the Dalai Lama, who is running his government of Tibet in exile. So China has all the reasons to safeguard Doklam as well as the Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary. Moving on. According to this deal, this was actually a historical deal. Historical as well, as it does mean that it is not something that is relevant from current perspective. But yes, it will show the way through. Earlier, China said that we will exchange around 495 square kilometers of north central Bhutan with around 269 square kilometers of western Bhutan. That is Doklam. In exchange of this, in exchange of Doklam, it will give the north central region. And in order to put more pressure, in 2020, it started claiming Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary also. In 2006, according to the debates in Bhutan, China had built 6 roads in the northern and northwestern areas of Bhutan. In 2010, Bhutan government issued a statement that it had reservations over the road building activities. Now the problem is, these two countries are saying that we are going to conclude the boundary talks as soon as possible. We are concerned that Bhutan will end up swapping Doklam. And India believes that China's claim over the Sakting Wildlife Sanctuary is in lieu of putting more pressure over Bhutan. India is concerned that China is pressuring Bhutan to settle the boundary dispute as soon as possible in order to harass New Delhi. I've already told you that with 14 nations, China has had a boundary issue. 12 it has already resolved, 2 remain. China's primary motivations in Bhutan stem from the strategic ones. There are so many natural resources in the Himalayan regions, so many waters that can be used for hydroelectricity projects, renewable energy, and of course to increase its clout in the political scenario, not only domestic but also international. and it is trying to harass New Delhi in order to show that New Delhi is not capable of doing anything. New Delhi is not the leader of Asia at all. So these are certain things that you have to keep in mind subtly and also over the board. Moving on. This is a prelims question for you. Doklam Valley is situated to the east of Bhutan, north of Chumbi Valley, east of Nathula, or south of Siliguri. You have to answer it correctly in the comment segment. Let me take the names of those students who have answered my last question correctly so that you can answer this one as well. So yes, I asked a question on Cyclone Tej and Hamoon. One only was the correct answer. Bhishma Pitama has answered it correctly. Ramesh, Vinayak, Simran, Nushrat, Sanjeev. Sanjeev has also given explanation. Good one. Satish, Revati, thank you so much. Anjali, Varun, Rocky, Pooja Gupta has also given explanation. Good work. Priyadarshan, Zarish, Divyansh, Vishal, Mansi, Vishal Pandey, Raghuveer, Block Control. Thank you for answering the last question. Answer this one as well. See you soon in the next class.